No one likes to admit it, but many of us feel resentful of others. I talk about resentment with men in relationships frequently in my sessions. Resentment's like a quiet, simmering feeling of being underappreciated or taken for granted. It's not just anger, it's a heavy, silent burden. And it's not just a bad mood either. It can poison your relationships. For a lot of us as men, we're taught to just man up and push those feelings down. We learn to suppress hurt, frustration, sadness, until the only emotion we feel allowed to express is anger. That's how we end up here, holding on to this unspoken burden and weight. So today we're going to talk about what resentment is, where it comes from, and most importantly, what you can do about it. I often describe resentment like this. Every time you feel angry, have a boundary violated, feel used, or have a need that gets suppressed, it is like you are putting a brick of resentment between you and the person you feel resentful towards. And this gets added to your emotional mental load. Each brick starts to build up over time, eventually creating a wall between you and the other person you feel resentful towards. Also, you start to feel the weight of these bricks as it is on you and you alone that are carrying this wall. And this wall not only blocks and makes it harder for you to reach out and break the cycle of resentment, it also keeps the other person from reaching you. It creates a block and barrier between you, causing more distance, disconnection, and eventually more resentment. Resentment isn't really a quick burst of anger, it's more of a slow burning emotional state. It's a mix of bitterness and frustration that happens when that initial anger is suppressed and left to fester. It's often been compared to drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And for men, this often starts with the way that we're raised. We're conditioned to be stoic and self reliant. This dynamic typically starts in our early relationships. For example, perhaps we were told to be strong, to care for our siblings, or maybe you had to take care of your parents. So now, when your needs aren't met in a relationship, instead of expressing them, we often just push them down, suppress. It's unfamiliar to ask for help or express a need for something that goes against our long entrenched, usually unconscious, belief that we have to be self reliant and can't trust or rely on others to emotionally care for us. So then we expect our partners to just know what we need, to read our minds. And when they don't, it feels like a personal offense. Sometimes we can start to make an internal list of what we have done for our partner and compare it to what we perceive our partner has done for us. Oftentimes, we end up doing so much for the other person as a way of saying, I need help, or can you do something for me? It's an indirect way of trying to communicate. But if it's not explicitly stated, the other person likely has no idea what you want or when you want it. So the score builds, and it's in your favor, and that's when the resentment begins to grow. This silent anger takes a serious toll. It doesn't just damage your relationships, it also personally affects you, your physical and mental health. The constant stress from holding it in can lead to things like high blood pressure, headaches, and a weakened immune system. So, how do we break out of this cycle of resentment? I'll talk about a few steps that you can take to start this process. One is individual work, right? Taking back your power. So, you have to acknowledge the resentment and accept that you have the power to change how you deal with it. Allow yourself to feel the real emotions underneath the anger, the hurt, the sadness, the fear, the letdown. Using a feeling wheel, which I'll link in the description, can help you with this. Notice the narrative of resentment in your mind. Resentment is just a habit of thought. You can learn to distance yourself from the hurtful memories of not getting your needs met. You can put down the scorekeeping and that Excel sheet in your mind. If you're highly self critical, then you can start to distance yourself from these critical thoughts and feelings. And finally, move your body. Physical activity can help release the tension that builds up from suppressed emotions and may actually help you prevent you from shame spiraling, blaming, or getting defensive and saying or doing something that you'll later regret. Two, relational work. You can start to rebuild the bridge. So the key here is communication. Right? Practice as much as possible using I feel statements. Instead of blaming your partner with a statement like you always, try saying I feel hurt when. This makes the conversation about your experience, not their faults. You can talk to yourself on your drive home from work using I statements to practice this skill. And this requires taking real ownership of your thoughts, feelings, desires, and needs. and it's a key step in the process to bring down that wall of bricks. Practice active listening. Listen to your partner without planning your own response. Notice when these responses past hurts, blaming thoughts start to enter your mind, and just take a deep breath or go for a walk if you're struggling to listen. Building trust is a two-way street. And finally, choose to forgive. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook, it's just about choosing to release the resentment for your own well being. When you can express your needs and make them explicit while standing true and staying true to your own boundaries, then you can start to determine the reality and utility of the resentment narrative. 3. Sometimes this journey is quite complex and it's hard to navigate alone. So asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage and self-mastery. A professional therapist can give you the tools and the safe space to understand the root causes of your resentment. Strength doesn't come from a rigid, impenetrable exterior or wall. It comes from doing the thing that's hard, which, let's be honest, is digging into our emotions and inner experience. As Chogyam Trungpa states, this is the definition of bravery, not being afraid of yourself. If you found any of this interesting, you can feel free to visit my website. The link is in the description, where you can find more information on strategies and techniques to help you break down the wall of resentment so you can start finding deeper connections in your relationships.